The Celtics will win blank titles by the end of Tatum's $314 million record deal.
Well, titles suggest multiple, right? So if we do an over-under multiple 1.5, I'm going to take the under, but I'll say 1. I think you have to give them that at least because that starting five is going to be together now for the next 4 years. They've already proven they can win one, but it's very, very difficult to win a championship, especially in the league today where there is a ton of parity. The West is very strong, and the East has gotten a lot better.
I'm going to say 2. I think when you look at where Boston is at, they have the best team in the league right now. They have everybody under contract for next year. I think they're the heavy favorites to win next year. So then you're talking over the life of Jason Tatum's 5-year extension, they win one more. I think given where their team is at, that's a realistic outcome for the Celtics.
Wendy, final word.
Yeah, there's real possibility that they could raffle off a few, but we've had 6 different champions in the last 6 years, and there's a reason for that. It's very hard to win back-to-back titles. So I do believe they will win again, but I respect how hard it is to win enough to not, say it'll be multiple.
Tim, fill in the blank here. Celtics' biggest threat in the East are...
I actually sort of think it's themselves and how expensive they're going to be, which is why their owners are potentially selling the team. But I think it's the Philadelphia 76ers, where you see Joel Embiid here making buckets. They've got Tyrese Maxey here, who's going to go in and lay this ball in. And then you've got Paul George, who they've now added to this team as the perfect 3-and-D, two-way wing player to play with these two guys. They have the best big three in the NBA. And while the Knicks are a deeper, more stable team that's maybe got like a B-plus outcome, especially with the loss of Isaiah Hartenstein in free agency, which is going to hurt them inside, especially when they play against the Philadelphia 76ers and Joel Embiid. The Sixers have the highest ceiling of all the competition for Boston in the league. And when you look at where the Celtics are at and how much talent they have to beat them, you're going to have to hit a pretty high-end outcome. And Philly, if they could stay healthy, massive if, that is what they have the ability to do.
Wendy, your thoughts. What do you think?
I feel the same way as Tim. I think in terms of top-end talent, everybody playing at their full power best, Philly is right there. Of course, that's the problem. We haven't seen Philly been that type of team in the spring. And frankly, I could make a case here for the Bucks as well, but it's been the same case for the Bucks. Giannis has been hurt the last 2 years when we got to the playoffs. So, if everybody can be, turn injuries off on the video game, I would love to see Philly play Boston. We'll see if that happens.
All right, are we missing the squad, Alan?
Yeah, TV did mention the Knicks, so let me mention them here because, the biggest threat to the Sixers is really the orthopedist, right? We're talking about the MRI machine is their biggest opponent this year. But the Knicks are the opposite when it comes to the high-end talent. They go with the high-end depth and culture and chemistry and all those things. They have 4 players now on the roster that scored 40 points in a game last season at least one time, and several of them on the roster did it multiple times. So they don't have to rely on just one player. They have several guys that can carry them, and I didn't even mention the defensive aspect, which they didn't get worse. They got better defensively with the addition of Mikal Bridges, and we all know Tom Thibodeau coaches every single game like it's the last game of his life. So we know how much they're going to approach the regular season. I think you mentioned it yesterday. They could finish 1 or 2 in the East just because of how serious they're going to take it, while the Sixers are probably going to have to manage their guys to make sure they get to the finish line. That's why I trust the Knicks more than I trust the Sixers, because the finish line is the area that Embiid usually crawls to or falls down on top of. He never runs through the tape.
Well, it's funny to go back to the beginning where you talked about the life of Tatum's contract. The team that's going to be the biggest challenger to the Celtics over the life of Tatum's contract is the Knicks. And they are constructed to be good for the next 5 years, which is what nobody can do in today's NBA.
Klay, we'll finish with this. The Lakers, you think missing out on Klay Thompson means what?
Yeah, they're probably headed back to the play-in, which is hardly a hot take. They've been mostly a play-in team since the play-in was created. And they're going to have to struggle in a very tightly compacted West where they're going to need help. The one thing I'll say about the Lakers, J.J. Redick is a complete unknown here. They really do believe that his structural changes and his strategy changes are going to elevate this team. And that very well could happen. I think one of the biggest mysteries in the NBA this year is whether JJ in that first year is going to be able to impact this team. And so I say that as an answer here, sort of judging their talent. Their ceiling could actually be higher once we see how it goes with JJ, or JJ could really struggle as a first-year head coach, as many first-year head coaches, especially with limited experience, do. So I think this is I'll give an answer to fill in the blank that I say it's a play-in, but whether they get Klay Thompson or not, I still think they're one of the fascinating high variance teams because of JJ.
Well, and the huge other problem they have is the 3 years before this past year, AD and LeBron missed a ton of time. Last year they played a combined 147 games, and they were still in the play-in. So the idea that they're going to be healthy for the long term, and this team is going to take a real step forward, I think, again, you got to be betting the other way if you're betting the probability.
It's amazing. We had a different take. Think about it. A year ago, they get to the conference finals with a new group of players around LeBron and AD, and we thought they hit on something with that group, right? And they get to the conference finals. Sure, they get swept, but, you know, I mean, we all saw the point differential in that series. We all call it the closest sweep in NBA history. But still, the feeling was, hey, they're on to something. It's amazing. A year later, now we're looking at this and saying they're barely a play-in team. But that's the reality of when you see something over the course of a full season. Say that again, Wendy?
Well, they were a play-in team that year, too.
That's
I mean,
right.
That's true, yeah.
And last year
but they had a run, and the thinking was maybe they found something. Then we realized that, no, that was just a hell of a run.
So what's next then? What's next for the Lakers? What's next for them, especially they have champampionship ideas. That's what
championship ideas is a great way to put it.
You know what I mean?
They have champagne dreams.
Yeah.
They have very, very, very low realistic expectations.
Beer budget.
When it should. Yes, they have. That's exactly it. Champagne dreams and a beer budget, despite being in Hollywood. I mean, look, this is a team that's just not that good. They were 24-9 per Hembo in clutch situations last year. It's obviously a pretty lucky outcome, right? They're probably going to have some regression to the mean there and be maybe closer to 500 this year. And again, if AD and LeBron are not out there a lot, no offense to JJ Redick, he can do whatever he wants. If those two guys aren't out there, they're not going to be that good. So I think it's more likely the Lakers miss the play-in tournament and don't make the playoffs than it is they're like a top 4 seed or top 6 seed in the West.
Wow.
Like there's not a lot to be optimistic about there, which is why I think they shouldn't have thrown multiple draft picks at trying to clear salary cap space to sign Klay Thompson. What is that really doing for him? It's not making him that much better.
Right.
They need to try to plan for a longer-term future. The problem is LeBron James is approaching his 40th birthday and doesn't want to plan for a long term.
If that's the case, then Wendy, LeBron has always talked about legacy, has always talked about rings. Is it now just about, hey, I get the opportunity to play with my son when we're talking about his legacy going forward?
Yeah. LeBron loves being a Laker. He loves living in Los Angeles. He loves everything about it. For so many different reasons, it sets him up long term. If he was gunning for championships, he wouldn't have taken this tack. He got one in LA. He's going to keep trying, but there's worse things in life than getting a max contract, playing with your son, and living in Los Angeles and setting up your post-life career. I understand that we live in this world where it's you either win a championship or you're a failure and you go off and you go sit in a dungeon for 6 months. LeBron has had a beautiful career. He's having a beautiful life in Los Angeles. Everything is doing fine. He wishes he was doing a little bit more winning, but the idea that the Lakers absolutely have to win and that LeBron has to win every second of every day, it ain't reality and it ain't what he's prioritizing. That's just the way it is.
Yes.
We can keep asking the question, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah, if you go back to go way back to 2010, right, when Brian went with LeBron down to Miami, he picked winning then, right? That was a winning decision.
Yes.
2014, when he went to the Cavs, that was a winning decision. Yeah. When he went to the Lakers in 2018, it was because he wanted to be in Los Angeles. Yep. It wasn't about winning. Mm-hmm. Like, that was not a team set up to win. He could have gone to a lot of other places and done that. This is what he wants to be. He wants to be in LA, nice playing with his kid. Like, that's the priority.
They need to install at the UCLA Health Training Center in El Segundo is a hot tub time machine. That's how they'll get back to being a contender.
There we go.